The humanitarian group Oxfam has severed its ties with actress Scarlett Johansson after she worked with them for nearly a decade because of the fact that she recently agreed to be a spokesperson for SodaStream. Now, just to give you a little context into this story, SodaStream is based in the West Bank, and Oxfam is a humanitarian group that has decided to boycott Israel over its relations with the Palestinians. So Scarlett Johansson working with SodaStream obviously goes against what they stand for.
Just to clarify, because SodaStream is an Israeli company
Yes.
working in the West Bank, and that's why it violates the boycott.
Exactly. So prior to them cutting or severing ties with one another, there were pro-Palestinian activists that were putting a lot of pressure on Oxfam to let Scarlett Johansson go. One of them said the following: Oxfam is a human rights organization. They cannot maintain an ambassador if they're involved in a complicit Israeli company built in a settlement. They can't keep both. You can't maintain something that it's contradiction. He also says that activists everywhere, particularly in the US, UK, and Palestine, as well as affiliated organizations and major Palestinian figures, are writing, tweeting, and calling Oxfam to dismiss Johansson as ambassador because of her conscious decision to lend her name to whitewashing Israeli occupation and apartheid.
So now look, she had done some really good work as an ambassador for Oxfam. She went to Kenya, Sri Lanka. She talked about traumatic disasters and about poverty. So I'm really glad she did it, and she stayed with them for 8 years. Now, some people are pointing out Scarlett Johansson happens to be Jewish, right? Mm-hmm. But now, remember, Oxfam had that policy throughout, and she stayed with them throughout. Now, in this case, she's getting paid by this company, so I don't know if it's a political, philosophical issue with her, or if it's just simply a price issue with her, and she made this deal probably worth a lot of money.
Yes.
And to be able to turn that down on principle would be a pretty difficult thing to do, and I don't know what her principles are.
Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately, the only thing we can do is speculate as to what her intentions are of leaving the humanitarian group and going with SodaStream instead. But we do have the ad that is set to play during the Super Bowl. Now, the Super Bowl ad might be different, but here's one of the SodaStream ads that have already been released. Take a quick look.
Like most actors, my real job is saving the world. Start with plain water, add bubbles, mix in the perfect flavor. Look, a soda that's better for you and all of us. Less sugar, less bottles. If only I could make this message go viral.
You doing it, Scarlett. Yeah, you doing it. Changing the world, one sip at a time.
Sorry, Coke and Pepsi.
Oh yeah, she done it. SodaStream.
Oh yeah, she done it.
Okay, apparently in the Super Bowl they won't have the last part, sorry, Pepsi and Coke, because Fox is worried about alienating Pepsi and Coke.
Yeah.
But they'll take SodaStream's money, as will Scarlett Johansson.
Now, Scarlett Johansson did release a statement through her spokesperson. It says the following: the 29-year-old actress has a fundamental difference of opinion with Oxfam International because the humanitarian group opposes all trade from Israeli settlements, saying they are illegal and deny Palestinian rights. Scarlett Johansson has respectfully decided to end her ambassador role with Oxfam after 8 years. She and Oxfam have a fundamental difference of opinion in regards to the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. She is very proud of her accomplishments and fundraising efforts during her tenure with Oxfam. And I should also note, SodaStream does employ 500 Palestinians.
Now, I understand that, but the reason the Palestinians overall are opposed to that is because, yes, during apartheid in South Africa, the entire country, businesses that operated within apartheid also hired blacks, right? But that didn't mean that apartheid was the right system. Now, some people are really outraged at the comparisons between South Africa and Israel and the idea of doing divestment from Israel as they did with South Africa during apartheid. I happen to think that the analogies are not that outrageous at all. And I think that in South Africa, they clearly discriminated against a group that happened to be blacks. In this case, Israel says, oh yeah, I mean, Arabs that live within Israel have voting rights, although Arabs within Israel would dispute that they have the same rights as Jews, given how their areas are treated, etc. Okay, that's a matter of dispute. But certainly you can't dispute that the people in occupied territories do not have the same rights. They They don't have the right to control their own land. They have to go through checkpoints. I mean, it's not, they're occupied. Now, the Israelis will say, hey, they're occupied for good reason. Okay, I mean, what if the Palestinians occupied Israel and said, well, I mean, we've had hostilities. We had to occupy you. We don't recognize your right to exist. My guess is the Israelis would be pretty mad about that, right? And so I think divesting and putting economic pressure on a state that is doing something wrong, which is the overall occupation, is a smart strategy. So when I disagree with the government of the United States, we point it out. In this case, I happen to disagree with the government of Israel, and I think that economic pressure is usually the best pressure. So I like what Oxfam is doing, right? And I like that Scarlett Johansson was with them for 8 years.
Yeah.
So bless her heart for that, and she did some good work for them. Now, again, I don't know if it's financial reasons or principal reasons that she's leaving them, but I get it. I get it. She made the decision she did. But in the end, at least it brought attention to the issue, which I think is overall positive.
So one final thing that I do want to bring up, the chief executive for the SodaStream company actually inherited the business, and he hates that it's located where it is.